"You're coming with me," said the lonely rancher to the woman beaten for giving birth to 3 girls. Aaron Hale had lived on his ranch for so many years that the land felt like the only true companion he had. When people in the nearby town spoke about him, they often said he was a quiet man, one who chose peace over noise and nature over crowds. His ranch sat in a wide-open valley, a place where mornings arrived softly, with golden light stretching across the fields and evenings faded gently behind distant hills. To some, such silence might feel empty. To Aaron it was simply life. But even he could not deny that the silence had become heavier with time, settling on his heart like a weight he couldn't quite explain. His days began before the sun rose. He would dress in the same calm routine, boots, shirt, hat, and step outside to breathe the cool, fresh air that smelled of grass and dust and growing things. His horses knew the sound of his footsteps and often lifted their heads to greet him. He spoke to them in a low, kind tone, a voice rarely used in conversations with people anymore. The animals understood him in a way humans rarely did. They never judged him for being quiet. They never wondered why he spent so much time alone. There had been a time when Aaron thought his life would follow the usual path: marriage, children, a busy household. But the world had turned in a different direction for him. Little disappointments, small heartbreaks, and the natural drift of life had led him towards solitude instead. He had accepted it, even learned to appreciate it. But in the back of his mind a soft wish remained, a wish for company, a wish for laughter, a wish for a voice other than his own echoing in the spacious ranch house. Even so, he never spoke this wish aloud. He simply carried it with him, tucked behind the calmness he showed the world. Meanwhile, only a short distance away in a small village, another life was unfolding, one that could not have been more different from Aaron's peaceful routine. Mira was a young woman in her mid-20s, with gentle eyes and a quiet strength that came from years of trying to keep her little family safe and hopeful. She was the mother of 3 bright, joyful daughters. Her days were filled with caring for them, braiding their hair, cooking their meals, helping them learn little songs and simple lessons. Her daughters adored her, and she adored them. They were the sunshine in her otherwise cloudy life. Yet Mira's life at home was not easy. She wished for understanding and kindness, but those wishes rarely came true. The house she lived in often felt tense. Although no harsh scenes will be described here, it is enough to say that Mira felt unwelcome and unappreciated far more often than she felt supported. She held her daughters close, finding comfort in their laughter and the innocent way they believed the world was full of possibilities. Their hope kept her going. The village around her was a place where people knew everything about each other, or at least thought they did. They saw Mira walking with her daughters. They heard snippets of conversations. They noticed things that she never said aloud. But noticing is not the same as helping. Everyone stayed within the lines of their own routines, their own comfort zones. Mira learned early that waiting for others to step forward rarely changed anything. Her days passed in a blur of chores, whispers she pretended not to hear, and moments of joy she held carefully like fragile glass. The sweetness of her daughters' voices often kept her steady. She would sit with them by the window at night, telling them hopeful stories. Stories where challenges were temporary, where kindness always found a way, where every person had a place where they belonged. Though she always spoke with a smile, inside she worried. She wondered whether life would always feel so constrained. She wondered if she would ever be seen for who she truly was, a caring mother, a gentle soul, someone who deserved respect and peace. In this village, Mira often felt invisible, even though she worked hard and loved deeply. She longed for a simple thing, a life where she and her girls could breathe without fear of being blamed for things they did not choose, a life where raising daughters was celebrated, not criticized, a life where her presence brought warmth, not unwanted comments. She never imagined that her world would one day cross paths with someone like Aaron Hale, a man she had never heard of, living a life completely separate from her own. Life, however, has a strange way of moving people toward each other when the moment is right, even if they have no idea change is approaching. One quiet afternoon, Aaron traveled to town for supplies. He did this once or twice a month, making sure he had enough food, tools, and materials for his ranch. Shopping in town was the closest thing he had to social activity, though he usually spoke only a handful of words to the store owners. They liked him well enough, calling him reliable and polite, even if reserved. Aaron never stayed long. The noise of the town felt overwhelming to him compared to the calm of his ranch. That day, while loading feed into his truck, he overheard a few people from the village talking. They weren't speaking loudly, but their words drifted toward him. They mentioned a young woman named Mira, someone struggling, someone facing difficulties at home, someone trying to raise her daughters with grace despite the challenges around her. Aaron didn't know her. He didn't know her family or her story beyond those brief comments. But something in the tone of the speakers made his heart tighten. He had always believed people deserved kindness. He had always felt sadness when he heard of someone facing hardship alone. He wondered who she was, what she looked like, whether she had anyone to depend on. He didn't dwell on it for long. After all, he told himself, he was a stranger to her, and she had her own life, her own world. His job was to mind his own path, yet as he drove back to the ranch, her name stayed with him like a soft echo. Mira. He repeated it in his mind without realizing it. He wondered why the thought refused to fade. Perhaps it was because loneliness sharpens a person's awareness of others who might also feel alone. Back in the village, Mira's day continued as usual. She cooked, cleaned, comforted her daughters, and tried to keep peace in the household. She smiled when her girls sang their favorite little tune, even though her heart felt heavy. She often wondered whether the world beyond the village was different, more accepting, more patient, more understanding. Her daughters, innocent and hopeful, believed that their mother could handle anything. They trusted her completely. And Mira, despite her quiet pain, tried her best to maintain that trust. Her strength came from love. In the late afternoon, she stepped outside to hang laundry. The sun was warm, the air soft. For a few minutes, everything felt calm. She watched her daughters play with small pieces of cloth, pretending they were flags in a parade. She laughed softly. In such moments, she almost believed things would one day become easier. She did not know that fate was slowly pulling her toward a different life, one that would bring her into the path of a man she had never met, a man who lived far from crowds, far from the noise of the world, a man who had room in his heart for quiet connections and gentle responsibilities. A man who, without fully understanding why, had begun thinking about a woman he had only heard of in passing. On the following morning, Aaron woke with a strange sensation, a feeling that something was about to shift. He couldn't explain it. His home looked the same, his chores were the same, the animals greeted him with the same familiar sounds. And yet, a subtle restlessness filled him. He tried to brush it aside. Life on a ranch did not allow for much daydreaming. Work came first. But throughout the day the feeling persisted. It was as though life were preparing him for something he couldn't yet see. Sometimes change begins quietly, with nothing more than a gentle tug on the heart. Sometimes two people who have never met are already moving toward each other step by step without realizing it. Aaron did not know it. Mira did not know it. But their stories had already begun to weave together, slowly, softly, like the first threads of a new beginning. And soon both of their lives would shift in a way neither expected, guided by a moment still waiting on the road ahead. The evening sky slowly changed from soft gold to a deeper shade of orange as the sun began to sink behind the hills. The village lights flickered awake one by one, and the air settled into that quiet moment between daylight and night. It was the time when families gathered indoors, when doors closed softly, and when the world seemed to exhale after a long day. For Mira, evenings were often the hardest. She tried her best to stay cheerful for her daughters, but the days were long, and the constant pressure around her made her heart feel tired. Still, she moved through her home with gentle patience, helping her daughters finish their meals, brushing their hair, and preparing them for bedtime. She believed that if their nights were peaceful, their dreams would remain bright even when the real world felt heavy. Her daughters loved sleeping close to her. They would tuck themselves around her like little birds in a nest, asking her to tell them a story. Something simple, warm, and full of hope. Mira always had a story ready because she knew how important it was to keep their young hearts safe from worry. As they listened, their eyes would slowly grow heavy, and one by one they would drift into sleep. Even after they slept, Mira often stayed awake, thinking about the next day, the next week, the next year. She wondered how much longer she could live with so much uncertainty. She wondered if she would ever find a safe place, a peaceful place where she could simply breathe without feeling judged or blamed. She wondered whether the world outside her village held different possibilities. The moon rose higher, and the night deepened. The air outside grew colder, carrying a faint breeze that brushed against the windows. Mira's thoughts grew heavier, swirling in quiet circles. She felt a deep ache in her chest, not from anything physical, but from years of feeling unheard and unvalued. She wished for someone, anyone, who might see her as a person deserving of respect and kindness. Meanwhile, miles away at his ranch, Aaron finished his final chores for the day. He tied the gates, checked the barn, and made sure his animals were settled for the night. The sky above the ranch was enormous, a blanket of stars spreading from one end of the horizon to the other. He stood there for a moment, breathing in the cool night air. He didn't know why, but his thoughts kept drifting back to the woman whose name he had heard in town, Mira. He did not even know what she looked like. He did not know her story, only that she was facing troubles she didn't deserve. He wondered if she was okay. He wondered if anyone was helping her. He wondered if she ever had a moment of rest in her day. He shook the thoughts away gently, telling himself it was not his place to worry about someone he didn't know. But the feeling did not leave him. There was something inside him, soft but persistent, that made him feel as though her life and his life were somehow connected, even if only in a distant, invisible way. As he walked back to his house, he looked at the empty rooms, the quiet walls, the silent furniture. It was a peaceful home, but tonight it felt especially still, the kind of stillness that made even small noises echo in the air. He realized how long it had been since he had heard laughter inside these walls, how long it had been since someone sat at the kitchen table with him, how long it had been since he had felt like part of a family. He sighed and poured himself a warm drink. Outside, the night grew darker and the world settled into sleep. Back in the village, Mira's home grew quieter too. The daughters were fast asleep, their small hands relaxed, their breaths soft and steady. Mira sat beside them, smoothing their hair once more before standing up. She felt a strange tug in her heart, a feeling she didn't quite recognize. It was a mix of fear, hope, and something else. A whisper inside her, telling her that things might soon change. She looked out the window. The sky was cloudy, hiding the stars. A distant rumble of wind moved through the trees. She wrapped a shawl around her shoulders and stepped outside for a moment of fresh air. The world felt unusually calm, almost expectant, as though something important was slowly moving toward her life. Her thoughts drifted to all the days she had stayed silent, all the moments she had wished for someone to notice her struggles. She wondered whether life was meant to stay the same forever, or whether there might be a turning point waiting for her somewhere. Sometimes she imagined walking down a road that led to a safer place, but she never knew whether she would ever find that path. As she stood outside, she whispered a quiet prayer, one asking for strength, for guidance, and for a sign that things could improve, not just for her, but for her daughters, who deserved a life filled with peace and opportunities. She returned indoors, unaware that the night would soon take an unexpected turn. Hours passed, and the sky grew darker. Clouds gathered, covering the moon completely. A soft wind turned into a restless one, brushing leaves across the village roads. Mira woke suddenly, unsure why. She listened. Everything was still. She checked on her daughters, tucking the blanket closer around them. Then she walked to the kitchen, poured a glass of water, and sat down. Something inside her felt unsettled, not frightened, just alert. like her heart knew a change was approaching even if her mind didn't. Then, without warning, the weather shifted. A low roll of distant thunder began to echo through the hills. A fine mist of rain started to fall. The gentle drizzle quickly grew louder, tapping against the roof and windows. Mira stood at the doorway, watching the night sky turn misty and wet. She knew storms were common in their region, but tonight it felt different somehow, more symbolic, more emotional, as though the sky itself was reacting to her hidden worries. She closed the door softly and returned to her daughters. They slept peacefully, unaware of the storm outside. Mira pressed a hand to her chest, feeling her heartbeat steady but thoughtful. She didn't know what the night would bring, but she sensed that something important was about to happen. At the ranch, Aaron heard the storm rolling in as well. He stepped onto his porch to make sure all the animals were sheltered. The wind whipped lightly through his hair, and the air smelled of rain. He walked once more around the barn to double-check everything, even though he had already secured it earlier. He often did this during storms. It gave him comfort to know that every living creature under his care was safe and warm. As he walked back toward the house, he noticed something that made him pause. A faint shape was moving along the road far in the distance. At first, he thought it might be an animal. But as he narrowed his eyes, he realized it was a person. Someone small, someone carrying something. Someone walking unsteadily. His heart tightened. Who would be out in the rain this late? He hesitated only for a moment before grabbing his coat and stepping into his truck. The road was muddy, the rain picking up speed, and visibility was low, but he felt a pull inside him, a quiet insistence that he needed to check. He drove slowly, following the curve of the road. The windshield wipers brushed away the rain, giving him brief glimpses of the moving figure ahead. As he got closer, he realized it wasn't one figure, but two, an adult and a child. The woman carried the child protectively against her, trying to shield her from the cold wind. Aaron's breath caught. Something about the sight struck him deeply. He stopped the truck beside them and stepped out, holding his coat over his head. "Are you all right?" he called gently. The woman lifted her face, and in that moment he recognized her, not because he had seen her before, but because he had heard her story. Mira. Her eyes held worry, exhaustion, and something else. Determination. She looked as though she had walked a long distance, yet still held her daughter with steady arms. Aaron approached slowly, making sure not to startle her. "You shouldn't be out in this weather," he said softly. "Please, let me help." Mira hesitated. She didn't know him. She didn't know if she should trust him. But something about his voice felt sincere, calm, safe. After a long moment, she finally nodded. Aaron opened the truck door. "Come with me," he said with quiet certainty. "I'll take you somewhere warm." It wasn't a command, it was an offer. A lifeline. A moment of kindness arriving at exactly the right time. And just like that, Mira stepped into a new direction in her life, a direction she had never imagined, guided by a stranger whose heart had room for compassion. This night, which had begun with storm clouds and uncertainty, would soon become the turning point for both of them. The rain had softened by the time Aaron's truck reached the ranch, though the clouds still hung low in the sky, as if the night had more to say. Inside the truck, the soft glow of the dashboard lights created a warm space around Mira and her little daughter. Mira held the child close, keeping her wrapped in Aaron's spare blanket. The girl slept peacefully, her small face resting against her mother's shoulder. Mira herself sat quietly, unsure what to say. Her heart was still racing from the long walk and from the uncertainty of stepping into a stranger's vehicle. But when she looked at Aaron, driving with calm focus, his hand steady on the wheel, she felt a sense of safety she had not felt in a long time. Something about him, his composed manner, his quiet strength, his thoughtful pauses, made her believe he truly meant no harm. Aaron, on the other hand, was trying to understand the situation without asking too many questions. He knew she must have left home in a moment of deep distress, but he didn't want to push her to talk before she was ready. The silence between them wasn't uncomfortable. It felt gentle, like a soft blanket covering two people who were strangers, but somehow not completely unfamiliar to each other. As they turned into the ranch driveway, Mira gasped softly. She had never seen so much open space so close to a home. The land seemed endless, stretching far into the shadows of the night. Even though the storm clouds covered the moon, she could see the outline of the barn, the fences, the tall trees swaying peacefully in the wind. The place felt quiet but not empty, like a sanctuary waiting to embrace someone. Aaron stopped the truck near the porch and stepped out. He opened the passenger door carefully, offering Mira his hand to help her down. She hesitated for only a moment, then accepted his support. When her feet touched the ground, she felt the gentle crunch of wet gravel and inhaled the cool, earthy scent of the ranch. "Come inside," Aaron said softly. "It's warm, and you must rest." Mira nodded, unable to find the right words. She shifted her daughter in her arms and followed him. As she stepped through the doorway, a wave of warmth met her. The living room was simple but inviting. A soft couch, a wooden table, a few shelves holding books and small tools. Everything looked well cared for, clean, organized. The room felt like the home of someone who worked hard, but also appreciated peace. Aaron set a kettle on the stove to make warm tea. Without looking directly at her, he spoke gently. "You're safe here. You can stay as long as you need." Mira lowered her gaze, her throat tightening. She wanted to thank him, but the words were too heavy, stuck somewhere deep inside. Instead, she simply whispered, "Thank you," barely loud enough to hear. Aaron nodded, accepting her gratitude without asking for more. He brought her a soft towel to dry her hair and offered a clean blanket for her daughter. After making sure they were comfortable, he stepped back, giving her space. Mira settled her little girl onto the couch, tucking the blanket around her and brushing her hair gently. The child let out a tiny sigh and curled closer. Seeing this, Aaron felt something unexpected stir inside him, an emotion he hadn't felt in years. It wasn't pity, it was something deeper. A quiet respect for a mother who had carried her child through the night, through uncertainty, through cold air and unfamiliar roads. A sense of admiration for her strength. When the tea was ready, he handed her a cup. Mira wrapped her hands around it, feeling the warmth spread through her fingers. She took a sip, and for the first time in hours, she felt her body relax a little. After a long moment, Aaron spoke gently. "You don't have to tell me anything. Not unless you want to. But if you do, I'm here to listen." Mira looked at him, her eyes soft but tired. She didn't know where to begin. She didn't know how much to say. She didn't want to speak unkindly about anyone, even if her heart held years of unspoken pain. But she also felt something rare, someone offering to listen without judgment. "I just needed to leave," she said quietly, choosing words carefully. "I needed to find a peaceful place for my daughters." Aaron nodded slowly, understanding more than she said. He didn't ask what happened. He didn't try to guess. He simply accepted her words, giving her space to find the right pace for her story. Outside, the rain softened to a delicate drizzle, tapping lightly against the windows. Inside the warm room, time seemed to slow down. It felt like the ranch itself was offering Mira a moment to breathe. After a while, she continued, her voice steady but gentle. "My daughters mean everything to me. I want them to grow up in a place where they can laugh freely, where they can feel loved and supported."
Aaron listened carefully.
He could tell that Mira was not only tired physically, she was tired emotionally, from years of carrying burdens alone. "They deserve that," he said softly. "And you deserve kindness, too." The words touched Mira in a way she did not expect. She lowered her head, blinking back tears she didn't want to let fall. She didn't want to appear weak. But Aaron's voice held no pressure, no judgment, only sincerity. For years, Mira had felt alone in her worries. She had rarely heard anyone say she deserved kindness. Hearing it now from a man she had known for less than an hour felt both overwhelming and comforting. The night grew deeper. The rain outside slowed even more, turning into a quiet mist. The ranch animals settled into their shelters, and a peaceful stillness settled over the land. After making sure Mira and her daughter had enough blankets, Aaron stepped into the hallway. "You and your little one can take the guest room," he said softly. "It's warm and clean, and the bed is comfortable." Mira shook her head lightly. "I don't want to trouble you." "It's no trouble," Aaron replied. "I want you both to rest properly." She hesitated, but finally agreed. Aaron led her to the room, turned on the soft lamp, and stepped back. "If you need anything," he said, "I'll be just down the hall." Mira nodded with gratitude. She laid her daughter on the bed, tucking her in with gentle hands. When she turned to thank Aaron again, she noticed he had already stepped out, giving her privacy. She closed the door quietly. Inside the room, she finally allowed herself to breathe deeply. The bed felt soft, the air comfortable, and the silence calming. Her daughter snuggled into the blankets, murmuring happily in her sleep. Mira sat on the edge of the bed, letting her mind settle. It was the first moment of true peace she had felt in a long time. She didn't know what the next day would bring, but tonight she wasn't afraid. She looked around the room, noticing the simple decorations: a wooden frame on the wall, a small plant on the windowsill, a hand-woven rug on the floor. Everything felt warm, thoughtful, lived in. For the first time, she wondered what kind of man Aaron truly was. Anyone could open their door for a moment, but very few people offered genuine kindness without expecting anything in return. She sensed that Aaron was one of those rare individuals, a person who believed in helping quietly, without needing recognition. The next morning arrived softly. A fresh, gentle light filtered through the window, and Mira awakened to the sweet scent of the countryside. Birds chirped in the distance, greeting the new day. Her daughter still slept beside her, peaceful and content. For a moment, Mira forgot her worries. The calmness of the ranch felt like a dream. She stood, stretched her tired arms, and looked outside. The fields sparkled with droplets from the night's rain. The trees swayed gently. The world felt wide and open. She stepped into the hallway and found Aaron already up, preparing breakfast in the kitchen. He looked up when he heard her soft footsteps. "Good morning," he said with a warm smile. "I hope you slept well." Mira nodded. "Better than I have in a long time." "I'm glad," Aaron replied sincerely. He poured her a cup of warm milk and offered a plate of bread and fresh fruit. Mira accepted with quiet gratitude. They sat at the table in peaceful silence for a few moments. Then Aaron spoke, careful and thoughtful. "You can stay here for as long as you need, but I want to make sure you're comfortable." "I don't want anyone to trouble you." Mira's heart tightened with both gratitude and worry. She knew her absence from the village might be noticed. She didn't know what others might think or say. She didn't know whether people would search for her. The thought made her uneasy, not because she feared anyone, but because she worried about her daughter's future. Aaron saw this worry in her expression and spoke gently. "No one will trouble you here, but if anyone comes asking, we'll handle it calmly." His reassurance comforted her, but she also knew something else. The world outside wasn't always quiet. People often talked. People often questioned. And indeed, back in the village, whispers were already beginning. Neighbors had seen Mira leave. Some wondered where she had gone. Some assumed she needed space. Others made guesses that were not helpful. Those whispers grew slowly, like ripples in a pond. And soon, someone from her old home noticed she was gone. Noticing turned into searching. Searching turned into questions. A trail of footprints leading toward the edge of the village did not go unnoticed. Someone followed them. And little by little the path began pointing toward Aaron's ranch. Unaware of this, Mira continued sipping her warm milk, enjoying a peaceful morning she had longed for. She believed she finally had a moment to breathe, to think, to gather strength. But life was preparing another turning point, one that would test her courage again, one that would test Aaron's kindness too. Yet neither of them knew that what awaited them would not break the peace, but shape a new beginning. Morning sunlight poured over the ranch like warm honey, touching every fence post, every blade of grass, every corner of the cozy home where Mira and her daughters were beginning to feel safe. For a few days, life slipped into a gentle rhythm. Mira helped with small chores around the ranch, not because Aaron asked her to, but because doing things made her feel useful, grounded, and calm. Her daughters played under the wide sky, laughing freely without fear of being scolded or judged. The ranch seemed to give them all space to breathe.
Aaron watched them with quiet admiration. He loved seeing the girls run in the fields, chasing butterflies or skipping over small stones with childish excitement.
He loved how Mira's face softened when she saw her daughters happy. He noticed that when she laughed, a real, genuine laugh, it was light and warm, like a bird finally learning how to fly. But something else hovered around the edges of their peaceful days, a small shadow. It wasn't danger, just tension. A sense that the outside world, with all its opinions and expectations, might eventually reach the ranch. Aaron sensed it. Mira sensed it. They both tried not to think too much about it, choosing instead to focus on the goodness growing quietly between them. Still, life has a way of bringing unresolved things forward, especially when one least expects it. One afternoon, while Aaron was repairing a fence, he noticed movement down the long dirt road that led to his ranch. A cloud of dust rose behind a slow-moving vehicle. He squinted, trying to make out who it might be. Visitors were rare on his property, and he usually knew who was coming before they arrived. This time, he didn't. Aaron wiped his hands on his jeans and stood straighter. A strange feeling ran through him, not fear, but alertness. Something told him that this visit was connected to Mira. Inside the ranch house, Mira was helping her daughters finish their drawings at the kitchen table. The girls hummed a little tune, completely unaware of anything unusual. Mira smiled at them, though her heart felt slightly unsettled for reasons she couldn't explain. Then she heard a truck outside. The humming stopped. The girls looked up. Mira froze. She walked to the window slowly, holding the corner of the curtain between trembling fingers. When she peeked outside, her breath caught. A small group of people stood near the driveway, familiar faces from her village. Her heart skipped a beat, not because she feared them, but because she feared they might misunderstand. She worried they might think she left without reason. She worried they might ask questions she wasn't ready to answer. She worried that her daughters might feel pressured or confused. She also didn't want trouble for Aaron, who had shown her only kindness. She whispered her daughter's name softly. "Stay here, sweethearts. Don't be scared. Everything will be okay." The little girls nodded, trusting their mother completely. Mira stepped outside, her shawl wrapped tightly around her shoulders. The air felt heavier now, like the sky itself was holding its breath. Aaron walked toward her, keeping a steady pace. When he reached her, he spoke quietly. "You don't have to say anything you're not comfortable saying. I'm right here." His calm voice settled her heart just enough for her to breathe again. The small group from the village approached. Their expressions showed concern, not anger. They were curious more than anything, wondering why Mira had left suddenly, wondering if she was all right, wondering whether she needed support. One of the villagers spoke first, carefully. "Mira, we were worried. Mate, we didn't know where you went. We just wanted to make sure you and your daughters were safe." Mira folded her hands together, steadying her voice. "We are safe. Thank you for your concern." Another person stepped forward, a middle-aged woman who had known Mira since childhood. Her tone was soft. "Why didn't you tell us you were leaving? We could have helped in some way." Mira lowered her gaze. "I didn't want to trouble anyone." Aaron stood beside her, not interrupting, but offering silent strength. The villagers exchanged glances. They noticed the ranch, the peaceful atmosphere, the way Aaron stood protectively but respectfully near Mira. They could tell she wasn't here against her will. She seemed calmer than they had seen her in years. Still, misunderstandings tend to appear easily, especially in small communities. One man crossed his arms slowly. "Did someone bring you here?" he asked, not accusingly, but cautiously. Mira shook her head. "No. I left on my own decision. Aaron found me on the road and offered help because it was raining. He did nothing wrong." Aaron remained quiet, his expression gentle yet firm.
The villagers looked relieved but also unsure of what to do next. They wanted Mira to return, not because they disapproved of her being away, but because they believed her home was where she belonged. They didn't fully understand that Mira's idea of belonging was different now. She wanted a peaceful life for her daughters, a life free of constant emotional pressure. One of the villagers stepped closer. "If you need time, we understand. If you need space, that is your choice. But your absence is being talked about in the village." Some people are confused. Mira felt her chest tighten. She didn't want to cause gossip. She didn't want her story twisted into something untrue. But she also wasn't ready to return. She wasn't ready to explain everything. Before she could respond, Aaron gently stepped forward. "Mira and her daughters are welcome here for as long as they need," he said in a calm, respectful tone. "This is a peaceful place. No one here is forcing them to do anything." His words were not loud, but they carried weight, the kind of weight that comes from sincerity. The villagers examined his expression, his posture, his tone. They saw truth, not tension. Mira looked at him with gratitude shining in her eyes. His support was steady and calming, like a hand holding her worries still. One of the women smiled softly. "If you're all right, then we won't insist on anything. We just wanted to see you with our own eyes to know you weren't in trouble." Mira nodded. "I appreciate that." A gentle silence fell over the group. The villagers saw that Mira had found a place where her daughters could laugh freely, where her shoulders relaxed, where her eyes looked brighter. They realized that maybe this ranch was exactly what she needed. A quiet shelter, a temporary pause, or perhaps even a new beginning. Before leaving, the eldest villager spoke with genuine warmth. "If you ever want to talk or return, or need anything from us, we are there. But we won't disturb you. Your peace matters." Mira felt tears gather behind her eyes. Not from sadness, but from relief. She placed a hand over her heart. "Thank you. Truly." When the villagers finally turned back toward their truck, Mira's breath shook slightly, finally releasing the tension she had been holding. Aaron remained beside her, silent but present. When the last vehicle rolled away, dust settling behind it, Mira exhaled deeply. Aaron looked at her gently. "You handled that very well." Mira gave a small smile. "I was nervous." "I know," he said softly. "But you stood strong." They walked back to the porch together. The ranch felt calm again, as if embracing them with quiet pride. Mira sat on the step while her daughters ran out to greet her, hugging her legs and asking if everything was okay. She'd pulled them close, kissing their foreheads. "Yes," she whispered. "Everything is all right." Aaron leaned against the porch railing, watching the warm scene unfold. Something inside him felt lighter. He realized that helping Mira was not just a kind action. It was something that brought purpose to his life, something that filled the silence of his ranch with gentle meaning. As the sun dipped lower, painting the sky with soft pinks and oranges, Aaron brewed tea and brought it to the porch. They sat together, a quiet man, a gentle mother, and her playful daughters, sharing the calm of the evening. There were no dramatic words, no promises, no expectations, just peace. And though neither of them said it aloud, both felt it deeply. This day had changed something. Mira now knew she wasn't alone. Aaron knew his home no longer felt empty, and the quiet ranch, with its warm lights, soft breeze, and spacious fields, became the place where two lives started healing side by side. The days that followed were quietly beautiful, like pages from a storybook Mira never knew she would enter. Life on the ranch settled into a rhythm so peaceful that sometimes she wondered if she had stepped into a different world entirely. The wide open fields, the calm mornings, the sound of wind moving through the tall grass. Everything around her seemed to wash away the weight she had carried for years. Her daughters adjusted even faster than she did. They loved waking up to the soft sunlight that filled their room, to the sound of birds singing near the window, and to the comforting smell of warm breakfast drifting from the kitchen.
They had space to run freely without worry, to laugh without being hushed, to explore without fear.
The ranch became their playground, their classroom, and their safe little universe. Aaron watched all of this with quiet joy.
He had never imagined his home being filled with so much life. Every morning when he saw the girls running across the yard with their hair shining in the sunlight, he felt something warm settling inside him. It was not just happiness, it was purpose. His home no longer echoed with loneliness. Instead, it hummed with the gentle sounds of a family forming itself slowly, naturally, without force. Mira grew more comfortable each day. She still carried moments of uncertainty, moments when old habits of caution made her pause before speaking or stepping forward, but those moments grew less frequent as the ranch wrapped her in its calm embrace. She began to feel a sense of belonging, something she had long believed was not meant for her. One morning she stepped outside to find Aaron fixing one of the fence posts. His sleeves were rolled up, and the cool morning light touched his shoulders. She watched him for a moment, noticing how steady he was, how patient, how thoughtful in every action. He looked up and smiled when he saw her. "Good morning," he said warmly. "Good morning," she replied, returning the smile without hesitation. It was a simple exchange, yet it carried a quiet tenderness that both of them felt but did not rush to name. Mira walked closer. "Let me help." Aaron shook his head kindly. "You don't have to." "I want to," she answered gently. He nodded then, accepting her offer, and together they worked side by side. They didn't talk much, but the silence between them was comfortable, filled with unspoken understanding. Whenever their hands accidentally brushed, Mira felt a small flutter in her heart, a gentle reminder that she was beginning to trust again, to hope again. As the weeks passed, the ranch transformed even more. Mira cleaned corners of the house Aaron had ignored for years. She organized cupboards, planted flowers near the porch, and slowly brought warmth into every room. The girls drew colorful pictures and hung them on the refrigerator. Their laughter filled spaces that had long been empty. One evening, Mira prepared a simple dinner: warm bread, vegetable stew, and fresh fruit. When Aaron sat at the table and took his first bite, he paused. "This is wonderful," he said with genuine appreciation. Mira's cheeks warmed with a soft blush. "I'm glad you like it." He looked at her for a moment, and something gentle passed between them. Something new, something gentle, something hopeful. After dinner they sat outside on the porch with the girls, watching the sunset paint the sky with shades of orange and pink. The air was cool but not cold, and the atmosphere felt peaceful. The youngest daughter climbed onto Aaron's lap without hesitation, showing him the little drawing she had made that day. It was a picture of the ranch, sun shining above it, birds in the sky, flowers blooming near the house, and 4 small figures standing together. Mira leaned slightly toward him, curious. "What is that?" she asked her daughter. The little girl giggled. "It's us." Aaron looked at the drawing closely. There was Mira, her daughters, and him, standing beside them with a smile drawn on his face. Something inside him softened deeply. He looked at Mira, who had also seen the picture. Their gazes met, gentle and shy. Neither of them said anything, but both felt the same quiet truth. Their lives were becoming woven together. Though life at the ranch was peaceful, Mira knew she needed to think about her future carefully. She wanted to stand on her own feet. She wanted her daughters to grow up in stability, not uncertainty. She wanted to rebuild her confidence, her strength, and her sense of independence. One afternoon, she approached Aaron while he was tending to the horses. "I've been thinking," she began softly. "I would like to find work. Something nearby. Something I can do while the girls are safe here." Aaron looked at her thoughtfully. "You don't have to rush into anything." "I know," she said gently. "But it's important to me." He nodded, respecting her determination. "There's work in town. I know a few people who could help. And whatever you choose,
I'll support you." Mira smiled with gratitude, her heart warming.
His support wasn't heavy. It wasn't possessive. It was simply thoughtful, steady, and sincere. Over the next week, Aaron helped her speak with a store owner in town. The owner, a kind older woman, agreed to hire Mira part-time. Mira felt proud the first time she stepped into the shop as an employee, wearing a name tag, greeting customers with confidence. Her daughter stayed safely at the ranch with Aaron, who took great care of them. He taught them how to feed the animals, how to plant seeds, how to listen to the sounds of nature. They adored him, and he adored them quietly, though he tried not to show too much, unsure of where boundaries lay. But even boundaries have a way of softening when hearts grow comfortable. Months passed gently, each day adding a new layer to the connection forming between Mira and Aaron. They shared breakfasts, laughter, long talks in the evenings, and quiet moments where words were unnecessary. They learned each other's rhythms, hopes, and fears. One late afternoon, as the sky glowed with soft golden light, Mira walked toward the barn to bring Aaron some water. She found him standing by the horses, brushing one of them with slow, thoughtful strokes. She approached quietly. "Aaron," she called in a gentle voice. He turned toward her, smiling softly. "Yes?" She held out the water. He accepted it and took a sip, then wiped his hands. "Mira, there's something I've been meaning to say." His voice was steady but warm. She waited, her heart already fluttering. "I want you to know," he said, "that you and your daughters have become a very important part of this place. Of my life. This ranch feels different now. Better. Brighter." Mira felt her chest warm. She looked down, then back up again with a soft expression. "It feels like home to us," she admitted, her voice barely above a whisper. "A real home. Something we never thought we would find." Aaron's breath caught slightly. "I'm glad," he said quietly. "I want this to be a place where you feel safe, where your daughters feel free to grow, where you don't have to look over your shoulder or worry about what others may think." Mira nodded, her eyes shining with unshed tears, not of sadness, but of relief. "I do feel safe," she said gently, "because of you." The air between them warmed with unspoken feelings. Nothing rushed, nothing dramatic. Just two hearts slowly recognizing something beautiful. Mira stepped closer, her hands folded nervously. "You have been so kind to us, more than anyone has been in a long time." "I only did what felt right," Aaron replied. "What felt right for you changed everything for us," Mira said softly. They stood quietly, understanding each other more deeply than words alone could express. As the seasons shifted, life continued to unfold gently. The girls grew taller, learned new skills, and filled the ranch with laughter. The flowers Mira planted blossomed beautifully in the summer sun. The fields turned golden, then green, then golden again. And the bond between Mira and Aaron grew steadily, stronger, warmer, more meaningful. They became partners in small things first, cooking meals, tending the garden, caring for the animals, then partners in bigger things, planning improvements to the ranch, discussing the girls' education, imagining a long-term future full of stability and joy. One crisp evening, as the first stars appeared, Aaron and Mira stood on the porch watching the girls chase fireflies. "Mira," Aaron said softly, "whatever path you choose, I'll walk beside you. If you decide to stay, this ranch will always be your home. You don't owe me anything." "I just want you to feel you belong." Mira turned toward him, her heart swelling with emotion. "I do belong," she whispered. "And I want to stay. Not because I need a place, but because this is where my heart feels peaceful. Because you treat us with kindness. Because my daughters feel loved here. And because," she hesitated, her breath catching, "because I care for you." Aaron's eyes softened with a warmth that reached all the way into his soul. "I care for you too," he replied quietly. There were no dramatic gestures, no rushed decisions, just a gentle truth blooming between them. A truth rooted in mutual respect, patience, kindness, and shared healing.
The ranch continued to grow into a home full of love, laughter, and new beginnings. And the sentence that started it all, "You're coming with me," was no longer a moment of uncertainty. It became the turning point in Mira's life. It became the start of Aaron's quiet happiness. It became the beginning of a peaceful future where a lonely rancher, a gentle mother, and 3 joyful daughters built a life woven with trust, hope, and healing. A future where every sunrise felt like a fresh start. A future where everyone finally felt seen, valued, and loved.